So the 2018 NFL Scouting Combine is a wrap. Now we really pick up the momentum and get going full steam into draft season. We have a little less than 2 months to go until the 2018 NFL Draft. I'm excited. I'm sure you are too. We start to fanboy out this time every year, and I know my work has only begun in terms of the scouting reports and stuff that are still to come on this channel, the mock drafts and everything else. But anyways, speaking of the Combine, it's time to talk about the biggest winners and losers from the weekend that was. And I'm going to start off with the winners. And first thing I got to call out is Penn State. You got 3 guys on this list that clearly belong. Saquon Barkley. What more can you say? Now there is legit talk about him going number 1 overall, and if he doesn't go number 1, he might not get past number 2. It's one thing when you're comparing him to like Zeke and Fournette, where they went 4th overall, but now Barkley is entering a stratosphere that is entirely different from those guys. This is reminiscent of the days of the 80s and the early 90s where running backs would go number 1, number 2 overall because they were that important. You're seeing a bit of a resurgence in the importance of the running back position again, which I absolutely love. And not surprisingly, Barkley went and absolutely shredded things. Mike Gesicki, his teammate, the tight end, was the big star, the big winner in terms of the tight ends. He was just an athletic freak. And speaking of athletic freaks, you got Troy Apke, the safety. I mean, that white boy ran mid-4.3s. What more do you need to say? Impressive stuff. White, black, don't matter. 4.34 is hauling ass. Is absolutely hauling ass. So Penn State has to consider this a victory for their program. Who else has to consider this Combine weekend a victory, and a massive victory has to be Shaquem Griffin from Central Florida. You're talking about a dude with a disability everybody knows about, that he's missing one of his hands, and he goes out there with a prosthetic. He puts up 20 reps on the bench, whereas a guy like Orlando Brown, a big hulking offensive lineman, puts up 14. Then Shaquem Griffin at 227 pounds goes out there and runs a 4.38. He's basically running the 40 time his brother Shaquille did last year, and he's 30 pounds heavier. One hand, two hand, don't matter. Fucking dude showed out. And then you get into the field drills. He looks great there. And with the linebacker group, all these guys that are dropping the ball in the drills, here's Shaquem Griffin figuring out he knows how to catch the damn football. Didn't look like a disability to me. Didn't look like an issue to me. And when you look at him, where you had maybe a month ago, he wasn't even invited to the Combine. Now he's been invited to the Combine, and he comes here, and he absolutely wrecks shit. Now we're not talking about if he's going to get drafted. It's when he's going to get drafted and on what day he's going to get drafted. To me, I look at Shaquem Griffin, and I say, absolute worst-case scenario, he's a special teams demon. And those type of guys are definitely worth a 4th-round pick, especially if you're a good team. You want a guy like that because they can still come in and make an instant impact. And then with some of the sub-packages that you run on defense in the NFL, Shaquem Griffin could do a lot of different things. He could blitz. He could play some weak side. He could play some safety. He could do a lot of things. But I feel like he might have entered the day 2 conversation with how good this performance is. And when you go back and watch the film, has to be considered a huge winner here. Who else were the winners? DJ Chark, the wide receiver from LSU, had a strong Senior Bowl week. Comes in and lights crap up again at the Combine. Guy you didn't hear a whole heck of a lot about before this draft process began. Now he's pretty much cemented as a round 2 pick. And who knows where he ends up. But he made himself a lot of money. Athletic dude that showed out. Absolutely showed out. In terms of the quarterbacks, I don't know if there was one overwhelming winner. I will go with Josh Allen because there were certain throws that were able to demonstrate his superior arm talent to anybody else in this draft class. Superior talent in terms of his arm compared to anybody else in this draft class. That said, I don't think he was so overwhelmingly awesome, but I could say that about all the big-name quarterbacks that were there. Rosen, Mayfield, Lamar, none of them really balled out. The guy that probably came the closest to balling out was Josh Allen. In terms of the offensive lineman, Kolton Miller tested out really well athletically. He's probably put himself into round 1 consideration. Will Hernandez, I think, surprised a lot of people with his athleticism at almost 340 pounds. He's going to be a round 1 pick. And especially with the unfortunate thing that happened with Billy Price and his torn pec, there was a space, an opportunity for somebody, and James Daniels took that opportunity. He looked like he was toying out there with people with how athletic he was and how great he was on his feet in the drills. I mean, he looked like he was absolutely clowning dudes. He was messing with them. He didn't even need to run a 40. It didn't matter. He might end up being a first-round pick when all is said and done. On the defensive side of the ball, Marcus Davenport established athletically that he can hang with the big boys. Taven Bryan from Florida probably put himself into first-round serious consideration as a guy that could play 3-4 defensive end. He could be a 3 technique and a 4-3. He did really, really well for himself. A couple of edge rushers I thought did outstanding as well. Harold Landry from Boston College and Josh Sweat from Florida State. Landry probably got himself into the top 20 of the draft. He looked good. Athletically, nice. In the drills, great. Josh Sweat, I thought, tore it up. And for a guy with some off-the-field and durability concerns, he needed to come out to the combine and wreck stuff, and that's what he did. He absolutely did. In terms of the corner that probably had the best day, I think it's Jaire Alexander from Louisville. He's probably put himself into first-round consideration. Not only did his numbers test out very well, but he was exceptional in the field drills. Like I said, in talking about the Day 4 winners and losers, I thought he might have been the best corner in the field drills. And if he wasn't, he was a close number 2. Either way, he shined. He starred. So he absolutely has to be considered a big winner here. So those are the winners, the positives. But for some guys, the combine doesn't go well for a variety of different factors. Now, you have some unanticipated things that happen, such as Maurice Hurst and the discovery of the irregular heartbeat. I hope for his sake that it's nothing serious. I hope that it's similar to a Star Lotulelei situation in 2013, where there's some concern and it might drop his draft stock a little bit. But if you remember, Lotulelei still got drafted 14th overall by the Panthers in the first round that year. I'm hoping that's the case for Hurst, that this is nothing serious. It's something you take some simple medication for, and he'll be fine, and he'll get himself back into first-round conversation. Then I look at a guy like Billy Price. You're talking about a guy that had been so durable, a multi-year starter, all those consecutive games at Ohio State, you know, a presence inside on that offensive line, especially once Elflein left for the NFL last year. And then, of course, he goes to the combine, gets on the bench, and he tears his damn pec. Now, it sounds like this is like a 4 to 5 month injury, so he would, in theory, be ready for the start of the season, potentially for the start of training camp. But the worst time you could possibly have this type of injury happen, it's just one of those freak damn things. What the hell are you going to do? And it sucks for him, and hopefully it doesn't impact his stock too much because, again, it's not like it's a season-long injury. So hopefully it's just one of these things. If it does impact his stock, it's minimal, and teams will see past it to see the good player that is on film. And then I look at Duke Ejiofor from Wake Forest. He's injured. He didn't really participate in anything. This was a chance, an opportunity for him to get out there, and because of injury, he wasn't able to. And just not the best look where other guys are going out there and doing well, and you're not able to cooperate and participate. Not the best thing. Doesn't totally sabotage draft stock. You still have pro days. You have film to go back to, but not the best thing for him. When you talk about the quarterbacks, I thought Luke Falk was terrible. Yeah, Mason Rudolph was bad, but Luke Falk looked undraftable. He was terrible. No arm strength, accuracy horrible. He looked terrible in terms of the footwork and the urgency in his 5 and 7 step drops. He was bad. Akrum Wadley from Iowa, for a smaller back, he needed to test out better than he did, and he just didn't get it done. Marcell Ateman, whereas at one point I was thinking that maybe he'll get drafted ahead of his teammate James Washington because teams are going to feel like he profiles better for the NFL. He crapped the bed at the combine. He didn't run nearly as fast as people might have anticipated. He didn't jump nearly as high as people might have thought he did. And then he had one of the worst gauntlet drills that I can ever remember. It was just god-awful. So now you're talking about a guy that might have had some day 2 talk, like round 2 to early round 3 talk. Now he's in the day 3 conversation firmly, like maybe even like 5th round pick. It was that bad. Dallas Goedert, the tight end for South Dakota State, when you've got Gesicki and Andrews and Hayden Hurst all working out well, all showing out well, and you're not able to really participate, it's one of those things that it's not because of anything you did or didn't do. It's just the fact that you weren't able to participate. You end up looking like you're not as good as these other guys, and these other guys do leap. And I don't care what these scouts and GMs and NFL teams say. You can tell a lot of these guys draft solely based off of the combine and pro days. Like, they look at the film and they're like, that's nice, but I'm going to drool off of this guy, this workout warrior in shorts. So it's important. I don't care what anybody says. It's absolutely important. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, who else was a big loser? Hercules Mataafa from Washington State. So far, when I've watched him, I haven't seen what the big fuss was. Seems like a great college player that really struggles to have a natural fit at the NFL. And what I saw at the Combine was just that. Didn't look good in the drills. I didn't think he tested out great athletically. Clearly puts him in the day 3 conversation and maybe at the back end of day 3. Roquan Smith from Georgia. He runs the 40, and then he gets hurt, and he has to miss the rest of the drills. It just opens up an opportunity for a guy like Tremaine Edmonds to show out, demonstrate he's a freak, and establish himself as the number 1 inside linebacker in this draft. Tavares McFadden from Florida State. I mean, the dude almost ran 4.7 in the 40. Ouchies. He looked horrible in the drills. A guy that months ago was in the first round or worst case scenario second round of a lot of people's mock drafts now might get lucky to be drafted. That's terrible. Then you got Taven Johnson's face. The kid from Weber State, the safety, going through the gauntlet drill. Bam! Right in the kisser. That sucks. That was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Poor guy. Poor face. Jamil Demby from Maine. When I look at a guard, he didn't test out well athletically. I thought he was only mediocre in the drills, and you're coming from a small school. This is where you're at the Combine. You need to come out and show you can athletically hang, and I think he left some severe questions, to me anyways, about whether or not he could hang athletically in the NFL. But arguably the biggest loser of all from the Combine has to be Orlando Brown from Oklahoma. This is the offensive tackle. You're talking about 6'8", 340-something pounds. You perceive him to be big and strong. And then he goes out there and runs a historically bad 40 time, 14 reps in the bench. He looks sloppy in the drills. He's high. He looks half interested, half disinterested. It was terrible. Now, you could make the argument that it's not that harmful to his draft stock because there are some teams that are just going to think he can't play outside at the NFL and he's too big to play inside at guard at the NFL level. You'll have other teams that are confident in the evaluation of the film and will focus on the film and ignore what happened at the Combine, perhaps knowing that he's more player than he is athlete. And the Combine clearly showed that. But for an offensive tackle class that is not great, for an offensive tackle class that's asking for somebody to truly come out of the woodwork and establish themselves as the number 1 guy, here was perhaps an opportunity for an Orlando Brown. Maybe he runs in the mid 5.4s. Maybe he puts up 22, 23 reps in the bench, and he looks better in the field drills. He's thinking about getting drafted in the top half of round 1. Now he'll be lucky to get drafted in the top half of round 2. That's a loss. That's a big loss. I don't know ultimately how low he'll go because I don't think the floor is going to drop out from under him as much as people might think. Because, again, we always have to remember with the NFL, he could still end up being a first-round pick for all the hell we know because the team could be confident enough in the film. I don't know why, but they could be confident enough in the film to say, screw it, we believe in him, we believe in what we see, he'll be better than his daddy, we're going to take him in the first round. But in reality, he feels more like a second half of round 2 to first half of round 3 type of guy. What he needed to do at the Combine and what he did were two entirely different things. But anyways, those are my biggest winners and losers for the 2018 NFL Scouting Combine. Let me know who your biggest winners and losers were in the comments of this video. Stay tuned over the next couple of days. I'll have an updated 2 or 3 round 2018 NFL mock draft factoring in all the happenings of the Combine. And then I will be getting back very soon, after maybe touching on a couple of the trades that have happened in the NFL. I will get back, yes, I will absolutely get back to doing the player scouting reports. So lots of content to come this month here on this channel. Subscribe, damn it. Most underrated sports talker on YouTube, and you know it.